Welcome to this webinar on how to boost your skills and brand your online presence. During this event, we will give you tips on how to build your professional brand. You will listen to inspiring stories from alumni, and we will dive into the million-dollar question, how do you network during a pandemic? So at the end of this event, we hope that you will have new tools and motivation to bring with you on your job hunt ahead. This event is brought to you by Lund University Alumni Network in collaboration with Lund University School of Economics and Management. Together, we create engagement with and for alumni and students all around the world. And speaking of the world, we're live from Lund, Sweden, but we actually have people tuning in from China, Canada, United States, and many more places. So welcome to all of you. So nice to have you with us. My name is Alma Bergil, and I will be your host this afternoon. Before we get started, just some practical information. If you have any questions for the speakers, please put them in our Q&A. I guess you'll find it below me here. And as you'll see, there is also a chat function, and you will write there if you have something you want for us to know, like, Alma, we can hear you right now, we can see you, please write in the chat. During the event, if you see that I don't look directly at you, then that is because I have this wide screen where I see the speakers instead. So I'm with you, I just don't look right at you. But okay, without further ado, let's get started with this event. Our first speaker is Stina Wikingsson from Career Services at Lund University School of Economics and Management. Welcome, Stina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So today, it's actually been a year since universities in Sweden closed their campuses, and you usually meet students and alumni every day, but this past year, it's been all virtual meetings. So I'm curious, what has been like the most common question you received this past year?
Well, the most common question, besides from like the obvious one, how do I get a job right now? I would say has been, how do I keep relevant? How do I, niche my education, my background in order to be more relevant when this pandemic is over? And how do I, sort of stay on my toes, I would say.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess a lot of people tuning in are on the job hunt, and something I suppose many people hear right now is that you will land a job when you least expect it, which might be a small comfort or even a bit provocative, but you actually landed this job when you least expected. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of a funny story actually, because I'm sort of a living proof of that actually happens, that you do land a job when you least expect it to happen. So I was at my previous job. I was working with recruitment and staffing back then, and I was giving a presentation on how to source talents for my colleagues, how to source talents on LinkedIn. So I was sharing my screen, I was showing like the LinkedIn tools, how to use it. And this job at Lusem was, all over my screen. So I was like, let's go for a quick break here. And I remember I went to my office and I read through the ad and I was like, I definitely need to apply for this. I was not in a place where my plan was to find a new job. I was not looking for something else, but sometimes it just fall into your lap. So I had no other option than to apply. And here I am 3 years later.
And we're very glad that you took a break there and that you are here with us today. And I think we should get started with your session, because you will prep our students and alumni with this like a sentence I never thought I would say, but how to network during a pandemic. You will prep them, you give them tools and motivation. And let's start. The stage is yours.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so let's see if I can handle sharing this screen.
It's always hard to know if you press the right button, right?
Exactly. So there you go. And then we have the presentation here, right?
Great.
You can see it?
Yes.
Good. That's a good start, right? Okay, so before we start today's session, we want to start with this really small practice just to settle in, to sort of get a feeling for what we are up to today. So I want you to go ahead and start with Googling yourself, simple as that. So I will give you a few seconds here to just put your name out there and pretty much just dive right in, as Alma said before. Okay, so you'll probably see some contact information, some pictures, or LinkedIn profile maybe. So just browse around there for a second or two. But basically what I'm trying to say here is that the feeling that you get from seeing the results here is actually made upon your online presence. So do you come across in a professional way? Yes, no? Would you be comfortable with talking about everything you see here with a future employer or at a job interview, for example? And I'm not saying that you need to be super sassy at this. You don't have to come across as a total LinkedIn professional here, but it is good to just know what is visible to others. That is sort of the first step to create a professional brand. Because what you're seeing here is actually your first impression, sort of. And first impressions really matter. And right now that is extra important, maybe when you can make impressions with handshakes, eye contacts, or others. So the great part here is that you can actually control your online presence. And we will dive a bit deeper into that, because today, after this short session, I want you to sort of know how to use the keys in order to create a brand that can be used online as well. Okay, so we will keep this in mind during my session here. What came up when you Googled yourself there? Let's look real quick at this short agenda here. And if you have any questions, you can always write them in the Q&A, and Alma and her colleagues will take care of them, and we will try to fit a few ones in at the end. Okay, but let's get started here. We're starting off today with the basics of the professional brand building. So I want to be really clear about this, that it is important to be aware of your professional brand before going online with it. So your personal brand is pretty much everything that shapes how people view you, and knowing your reputation, knowing your brand is crucial in all jobs and in all stages of your careers, I would say. So branding literally means make yourself known for your abilities. So it helps you to promote your strengths, and it sort of also distinguishes you from the crowd and your competitors, which exists. And there's also a strategy to convince employers that you are the one that they are looking for. And your professional brand is not only your CV or your LinkedIn profile, but it is what people actually say about you in general. The fact whether you show up on time, how well you help others out, how well you know yourself, your self-awareness, for example. So it comes down to what people remember and feel after meeting with you, or right now coming across with the online version of you. And in a job hunting environment, assuming at least a few of you are looking for a job, your brand is as important as your applications documents, I would say. So this is important to be aware of. So start to think about what is it that make you great? What is it that what kind of value that you can add to an employer? So in the green circle here, I have listed a few questions to think of when you're starting to build your brand. And you probably get this by now, but knowing your skills are sort of the groundwork here, the foundation, so to say. So in order to know your skill set, you have to get to know them. You can, for example, take some time to go through your skills after each and every course you're taking, sort of a career diary or a skills diary, or just to make sure that you are aware or becoming aware constantly about your skills. So you can write down what you've learned, and by that I mean like the knowledge you're gaining from your university courses, but also the skills you've gained, like the soft skills, but the hard skills as well. So they will be really valuable after graduation to go back and look at, okay, from this course 2 years ago, I learned this. And from this job, I gained this experience and this skill. And you can, of course, also go through other experiences you have from previous jobs and other educations. What sort of skills and knowledge did you gain? You can also ask your friends, your family, or colleagues, but I do recommend that you are sort of picky here. Only ask people you really trust and who knows you. So normally other people than ourselves have other ideas and see other things than that we are not really aware of about ourselves. So we're not trying to challenge ourselves or question ourselves here, but we try to understand who we are. I would want to mention also transferable skills, or portable skills also called, which are really great skills to use when you're applying to many jobs, and they might not be like generic, they might be a little bit different. So this is the qualities that can be transferred from different jobs. For example, communication, that is a typical transferable skill that can be valuable in literally all jobs out there. But I also want you to be aware of that skills become real and sort of trustworthy first when you can relate it to a situation where you made use of it. So you will need tons and tons of examples. We will get to this later on, but I wanted to mention it already. And don't only focus on one part of your background, because all the experience that you have, jobs, educations, extracurriculars, and others, they can carry different skills and qualities. So don't forget all the experience that you have. Okay, so let's guess that you have started to at least think about a few skills of yours. So the next step is to incorporate them with examples and cases to build your professional brand. So say that you have your skills, that could be teamwork, data analysis, linguistics, project management. Yeah, you know your industry, you know what floats your boat. So whatever skill you have, and then you start to finding proof or evidence of that skill. When did you actually demonstrate your teamwork skills? When did you make use of these skills? And again, you can break your life into different components, looking at the skill from different perspectives, university, social life, sporting, etc. And you repeat this with a few skills that you find extra relevant for the jobs you're looking for, and you start to build sentences. You combine it with your degree and your interests and create sort of a branding bank, might be a good word to use, or a skills portfolio to pick sentences from when you are applying to jobs. And a bonus tip here is that you are applying for a specific job. You can put the skill and the proof in regards to that position as well, or the company. So state how this skill would be of use. And by doing this, you will create your professional brand out of your skill set that already exists, right? So I will show you an example of how this can look like. So in blue, you will see marked the actual skill. In bronze or brown, whatever the difference is, the example or the proof, the evidence of the skill. And in green, I have marked the way that it could be of value to an employer. So this text says, I'm a graduate in strategic communication, highly skilled in customer service. That is the skill, right? My previous job in retail gave me a lot of experience with dealing with clients, right? That is an evidence, a proof. Something I consider could be useful at this job. That is the connection with the job at the employer. In a future position, as you can also flip it around this way, saying in the beginning, saying in the future position as whatever it is, I consider my background from the startup industry, that is an example, a proof, valuable. Being creative and initiative, that's a skill, is what I truly enjoy, but also something I've showed great examples of when volunteering as a project manager, a great example. So this is just an idea of how to make your skills valuable to an employer, making use of the skills you already have. So you're not supposed to invent new skills, but expose the ones you already have. And this is a way of, by doing this, you will create a professional brand that can easily be used online. And in that way, you can control the impression you made that we talked about in the beginning. But online branding, let's dive a bit deeper into that. First and foremost, online branding is about getting to know your target, your audience. Where are they? And where do you want them to find you online? So depending on your industry, your background, some of you might need a website to show your work, or a portfolio maybe. Some of you might need an Instagram account, or whatever appropriate for your industry. I do recommend you to also consider what your purpose is. Is it to share your knowledge? Is it to brand your skills? Or is it simply to expand your network? So always keep that in the back of your mind. What is the purpose, and why am I here? Why do I want to be on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever it is? When it comes to private or open accounts, this is a question I get a lot, and I don't think that is a problem to keep your Instagram account private or whatever you want to. But on the other hand, I want you to be aware of the things that are open. They are also available for your future managers, your future colleagues. So don't think too much about what is private or not, but just keep in mind that everything that is open is also visible to potential colleagues and managers. A rule of thumb is also to stay professional in your open accounts, but also show that you are a real person. So you can definitely show personality in your professional accounts if you're comfortable with that. And if you can manage storytelling, storytelling is a great tool to use if you want to show more personality in this kind of stiff professional environment, right? And your online presence is also a tool to show proof of the skills you say that you have. So sort of practice as you preach. It's quite easy to demonstrate your skills in public on LinkedIn, for example. So if we have a look at this picture here, we can see that Alma, she was probably not even aware of doing this, but by celebrating this post on LinkedIn, she actually embodied her brand there. So like celebrating others' posts on LinkedIn, it makes you come across as a positive person, as a kind person. So that is a way of sort of living your brand, or live as you learn. Great example, Alma. And building a strong online brand also means having a strong and consistent visual identity across all your communication platforms. You don't need to be a super savvy at InDesign or sort of a designer to make this happen. You just need to make sure that your cover letter, your resume, and your LinkedIn are consistent. So whether it takes place online or in physical form, make sure it has sort of the same style at least. And by having your platforms showing the same brand with the same visuality, you build a strong and consistent reputation for yourself. So try to make them be a bit similar, at least to each other, so that they will go hand in hand and work together. Okay, so we will touch upon the major subject of LinkedIn quite quick here, because I do assume that the most of you listening at least have a profile on LinkedIn. And the fact is that you won't need a great profile if you don't use it to network, and you simply can't network without a great profile. So these two go pretty much hand in hand. And I will cover 3 tips on each one of them that are extra important right now. So starting with your profile, you need to highlight your key skills. Remember that LinkedIn is search engine optimized, so you need to mention your key skills at least 3 times throughout your profile. You can mention it in the headline, in the about section, in your experience, in your skills, or anything. So highlight them a lot. Professional photos is important as well. You are supposed to look like and dress as you were to look at your future job or the job you're actually aiming for. The headline and the about section needs to be on point, and this is something I can't stress enough. So if you only have 5 minutes to put into creating a great LinkedIn profile, spend them on your headline and your about section. Networking, on the other hand, right now comes down to these 3 topics, I would say: recommend and endorse others. This is by far the easiest way to get a solid networking game going, and you can start with that, as soon as possible. Start with your classmates or your colleagues or people you have in your network. So endorse their skills, and they will automatically, not automatically, but probably they will do it back to you. So that is the first step to get networking going, I'd say. Also, reach out to people of interest, because people are actually very willing to help if you just ask them friendly. So start making like small informal interviews. That will give you a lot of inspiration and advice. And creating meaningful content. By that, I mean that you can definitely join groups and post content, but always keep an awareness and always consider what is relevant. So keep that in the back of your head when you are posting things on LinkedIn, that is this relevant? Yes or no? Okay, going online for networking, I know that could be a challenge. So here are a few hands-on tips on how to get started. First of all, approaching strangers on LinkedIn is sort of a work of art, and it is a benefit if you have some sort of reason to reach out. You can, for example, look for common ground, something that you have in common with this person that makes it much easier. I have written 2 examples here that you can be inspired of in the blue circle if you want to. Second, be of help. I know this can sound difficult, but doesn't have to be so tricky. You can, for example, write someone a recommendation. You can connect people with others, because you need to build trust. It's about giving and taking. So always try to be of help before asking for help. Okay. And the green circle here, I have added a few tips for you who feel that this is intimidating and feels kind of awkward. So practice, do your research, and I'd also recommend to use some sort of flatter or, being positive, because being kind and being positive, it always makes people online as well, it's sort of dropping their guards a bit. So that is definitely something that you can make use of. And many people are also, after a year in this pandemic, suffering from a sort of Zoom meeting fatigue. So maybe consider a phone call instead of making a Zoom or team or video conference call. So that could also be easier for some of you to reach out via a regular phone call. And last but not least, when reaching out to people, and this is generally speaking, make sure that you never ask them straight up for a job, but ask for, the circumstances that will help you find a job instead. So we're moving on from branding into the topic of future-proofing your skills in a way to also future-proof your careers. I know that many of you attending today, you come from various study backgrounds, you're into different industries, and you're aiming for different kinds of jobs. So this will be quite general, but for you just to get an idea of what this actually means, let's look at some topics to consider in order to be prepared for, whatever the future holds, literally. So soft skills is the first. They really matter. So we never hire a solo competency or knowledge, but we also hire a coworker and a colleague. And when workplaces are also being even more populated by tech and automation and stuff, human skills are, what will make talent stand out. So be really aware of what your soft skills are and promote them equally as your hard skill or your knowledge. The next part is something that you're already professionals at, the skill of learning new things. This is all about ensuring that you remain relevant on the job market. So make sure that you know how you learn things, how you acquire new skills, because learning doesn't stop when you leave university. So keep your approach to learning new things positive. Of course, a global mindset is an asset, no doubt. Businesses operate more globally than ever, and they are more culturally diverse than ever as well. So the more experience you get from this, the more confident you will be in working in a global team, for example. I know that many of you have some sort of international experience as well, which is a great benefit. And of course, tech savviness is also important for the future. So keep your technical skills up to date, even if it doesn't seem directly related to the jobs you're aiming for. And if you have no idea where to start with learning a spreadsheet like Excel, for example. That, a little goes a long way there. Okay, my final topic before our two alumni. Looking for a job now is a challenge. We all know that. We just need to cope with it and find ways to work around it. On the other hand, things do start to brighten up at least a bit. So a few pieces of advice here. You will need to write awesome applications, not too many though, so rather make the ones you send really great. And networking, creating new contacts, on the other hand, can't be done too much. So I know I wrote quantity there, that's a bit exaggerated, but literally it's never too much networking going on. So you can do that as much as you want to. You can use some sort of application tracker, networking tracker, in order to keep track of everything that you do right now. Maybe do that in Excel, why not? Virtual career fairs has turned out to be the next, big thing. And I know that can feel weird the first time, but it is a really great way to connect with employers right now. And this is also the future way of recruiting. So we better prepare for these sort of activities and how to best make use of it. As I said, informal interviews as a part of building your network is great. So reach out to people that you think have interesting jobs. That is a great tool to use right now. Second last but not least, I know that this one is a bummer, but it settle in for the waiting game. You'll need to understand that this takes time. Finding a job right now will take time. Maybe you will get some rejections, but all it takes is actually one yes. So just be prepared, as this will take some time and it will be challenging. But also be proactive. You need to keep one step ahead all the time. Be open-minded and curious. That will get you a really long way. And also make use of the network you have, like spread the word. No one will know that you are looking for a job unless you tell them, and no one will be able to hit you up with people unless they know what you're good at or what you're aiming for. So bear that in mind. Okay, last slide here. Remember that you should get to know your skill set and how to best promote them. Build a strong online activity, goes a long way. LinkedIn is a perfectly fine tool for networking right now. Think about the skills that can be relevant for the future and stay on your toes. And also, you will develop during this period of time and for the rest of the time. So, and your brand will change, your career strategies will change. So keep everything of that like really close, and evaluate them and edit them along the way, I would say. Okay, so that was it for me. I will stop sharing my screen here, and we will be back to Alma.
Thank you, Stina. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions for Stina, please ask them in the Q&A. She will be back later. And it was I feel inspired on the job hunt, so I hope you do, even though I won't. Now it's time to welcome our first alumna, and that is Josefina Röckert. She graduated in June 2020. Hello, Josefina.
Hello.
You currently work as a junior consultant in Stockholm, and 1 year ago you were offered your dream job, and the future seemed bright. And then the pandemic spread, and by the time for graduation, the position was cancelled. So my first question is like, how was that the goal that you've been worked on for many years just slipped through your fingers? What was that like?
Well, yes, it was very upsetting and quite tough, to be honest. I think first I was really struggling with just grasping why this was happening. I remember calling a friend just saying, I did everything right. And still it ended up like this. So it was very upsetting. I worked, as you mentioned, hard for it. And I think at some points I even felt like personally offended, like, why are we having a pandemic when I'm graduating? Like, obviously a very irrational thought, but it was definitely there at some points. And I was eager to prove myself, to challenge and test myself. And all of a sudden I wasn't even allowed to participate anymore. So it was tough, but also at the same time, I think I got a lot of comfort from, the collective all around the world. Everyone was experiencing the same thing, and that was a big comfort. A lot of people to discuss it with, to like kind of reflect my thoughts and my emotions. And
finding strategies together, because you're
exactly. So that was a big help, I think. And I think I also was very glad that I had some friends that graduated the year before or a few years before, and they actually had time to start their dream job, and then it was canceled. And that sort of felt more heartbreaking than not even having to start. Like, I didn't really know what I was missing, at least. So that was also some sort of comfort. So a lot of emotions, and I think bitterness was also a good word to describe the feelings. And this feeling was kind of new. I'm usually not a bitter person, but I was bitter at the time. Yes, definitely.
So many feelings those months, from
yes.
like, yay, landing this job, and then a nay.
Exactly. And it's nice when you're studying, because you have a plan. You always have like the next semester coming. And I've had that for 5 years, and then all of a sudden the next semester wasn't coming, and I didn't even know how to provide for myself. Should I move to Stockholm? Like, what should be my next step? I felt very unenergized and lost in many ways.
So like, from this very thought out plan that you had, you really had to widen your perspectives and explore new fields. So like, how did you direct your focus those coming months?
I think I had like different strategies at different points of time. One of the things I started with was just, looking for new jobs, what's out there, but it was literally a desert. Like, there was nothing out there. You had to look for the applications. If they were 1 or 2 days old, you didn't know, were this prior or pre-COVID, could I apply even? So honestly, it just didn't seem fun, the job that was actually out there. It just didn't seem exciting. So I quite quickly decided that I will not apply for jobs. I will just take some time and just let the market become a little bit more stable, and just not know what to do next. But it was kind of nice taking that decision and not stressing over, always looking at the next application. So I think that was, at least for me, a good decision. But then I started to look at, of my thought out plan, what could still be achieved. And then I kind of quickly realized that moving to Stockholm was definitely one of those things I really wanted. So I made sure that I actually managed to do that. At least I was moving in some direction, although not the whole package was with me. I could still
Like
gain
the pandemic can take the job, but they can't take Stockholm. You're still
exactly. So then also like felt a lot of empowerment when I took that decision, and like I could still imagining some sort of life that I already pictured in my head, although it wasn't really the exact same picture. And then I also, of course, started to think about, so paid labor doesn't seem like an option to me right now. What can be? And then studying, of course, came into my mind. And I really took the opportunity to see it as a time to explore new things. Like I had my bachelor, I had my master in business. If I'm going to study something else, maybe it should be something completely new or something that's really just for me and for fun. And I've had a growing interest for sustainability for quite some years. So I decided to apply for a second master in sustainable development, which I got into and was, super nice. And I applied for it near Stockholm. So kind of, kept moving in that direction. And then I also thought about, okay, but I lost a job. What do I still have? What can I still work with? And then my student job in Copenhagen, where I lived at the time while studying in Lund, was one of those things. So a kind of awesome thing actually with the pandemic is that my employer, which was a global medical company, wasn't just located in Copenhagen anymore. It was spread, all over the world. It was a global company. So with a lot of help from my coworkers, I started like pulling my network within the company and landed a position, still a student position, in Germany instead, which I never would have been able to do, with the not new normal before COVID. So that was really amazing. I got to see a lot of new people and try a lot of experience in Germany instead.
An opportunity that wouldn't happen. You would never be working in Germany if.
No, I wouldn't commute from Stockholm to Germany. That would be tricky. And then last but not least, I also felt, with the new master within sustainable development, I felt very new, like I didn't have the skills I had in business, nor the network. I'm new in the city. I need to just build some sort of ground. So I started thinking of actually a lot of what Stina was talking about, like how can I boost my CV and my network within this new field within sustainable development. So then I applied for a volunteer position at the Norrsken Foundation, which is Europe's largest impact tech hub. So there's a lot of people and a lot of initiatives within sustainability there. And I managed to land the position, which also felt like a great empowerment, not as planned, but still something exciting happening. And I met a lot of interesting people and got involved in some fun projects. So I was still feeling like things are moving, even though not in the direction I planned. It felt exciting and fun.
So you were like behind your computer, but moving all the time anyway.
Yes, like my closest coworker in the student job was located in America, and still we managed to like talk every day. And that just felt like, new opportunities, new world.
Yeah. So you really sought opportunities this year that wasn't at all what you planned. You had planned for something for 5 years, and then all of a sudden something happens, but you make all these choices anyway and see new opportunities that you maybe shouldn't have seen otherwise.
Yeah, definitely not. That's kind of, I had my thought out plan, like I did my studies, and the next step would be this and this and this. And it was kind of a fun way also just to explore, myself. So what other interests do I have? What other opportunities would I seek out? And just go for it. And I never would have done that without the pandemic. So I'm very happy for those reflections and try those things out for sure.
Yeah. But it's been a year of challenge, and it's been a year of changes this past year for many people. And our next guest, our next alumna, sure knows that as well. Sveta Mardar, she is an alumna who lives in London. Welcome, Sveta.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Alma.
And you lived this like vibrant social London life before the pandemic, and all of a sudden you became, in your own words, a cage animal. So So, but what you do today and what you've done for quite some time, you work as a campaign manager at EY in London, and your office has been closed for a year now, and you've been in a strict lockdown for a year now. But this has what you've told me, it has really challenged you, but also pushed you to be creative, because what you did is that you kept your job, but you also co-founded a global platform, Ruby Diaries, with the aim to inspire and empower women who do tackle problems, personal and professional, due to COVID-19. So can you tell us about the background? Why did you take this initiative?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we are now, I think, almost to the date, have spent a year in lockdown in the UK, especially in London. So I went from a lifestyle where I was almost never at home and maybe would spend a night a week at home to being 24/7 locked in a room in the house, working, living. That was that. So as kind of the first few weeks cleared out and there wasn't that uncertain in terms of like the job, the company, what's happening, our firm is in a good position. The updates that we were getting were good. We had a good setup to work from home. We used to work from home a day a week before that. Once that started to clear out, and there wasn't that immediate concern for what am I doing? Is my job at risk? What can I do next? It then became clear there was just a lot of free time. And actually going back to what Josefina was saying, you had this plan in terms of your kind of career, your first job. For me, it was about my personal kind of goals. I had 6 trips planned throughout the year, like epic things, trips of a lifetime that I was planning with my friends. And so what I was mourning for, still do, I still am, some of it, were those experiences that I didn't get to have. So it was not a new job, it was not a new opportunity in that sense, but it was those personal goals that I had that I wasn't able to fulfill. So I totally feel for that.
Did you also take it personal, like Josefina said?
Absolutely. I am still furious. This is all clearly, it was about me and me not getting my epic, Route 66 trip to the US with my friends. How can I take it otherwise than personal? It was very personal. So it was definitely that process of going through various stages of kind of grief and accepting at some point, but some things you still go back, like you're not 100% okay with what's happened. But again, because I was that very busy, always out, always doing things person, then there was a vacuum, right? What am I doing with my time? I can't just be working. I have all this free time. What can I do? And this is where I really appreciate kind of the connections that I've had from universities, because the idea with Woven Diaries actually came from a fellow alumna. So a friend of mine from Lund reached out, I think early April. So it really started with, a WhatsApp group that kind of turned into a Slack channel that turned into another WhatsApp group that then turned into a global platform.
So you were like all these cage animals just finding each other. Yeah.
We were linking, we were finding each other. And it was also about that we all kind of share similar things. We're all with a lot of international experience. We've all lived and traveled abroad for most of our adult life. So we were looking for each other. So we started by creating almost a support group for ourselves. And then we were looking at how can we, make that a community, because the idea was looking at what the representation was in, mainstream media, where you have either your top world leaders who are doing amazing things, and we love that, or you have the other extreme, which was women are victims, and just those kind of stories. And we are like, where's the middle ground? Where's everyone else that we know? So we basically started looking for those relatable role models that are amongst us. And we wanted to add that, that nuance, that variety of experiences that wasn't being captured and wasn't related, so that people can actually find, that it's not all either very bad or I'm super powerful. There is a complex and
more diverse voices. Yeah.
Exactly. The voices are different. The experiences are different. It's so different throughout the world. And so we saw that that's what we kind of started doing. So that's, we eventually came to the conclusion. I think originally the idea was to have a book, and I was going to be one of the original contributors to the book, but then the book graduated into a global platform, a multimedia platform, right? So by the time we launched in December 2020, we launched a website, we have social media channels, and then also a podcast, which I produce and host. So those are the various ways that, in a way, we sought to, I guess, express ourselves, but find some meaning in what was happening and share it with other people, because we are looking to unearth stories of resilience, of overcoming challenges. And it's one to, inspire ourselves and each other, and make people, take that positive action that maybe they're missing. Because if I'm watching TV, yes, I love seeing, Jacinda Ardern, but I don't relate to her. She is not someone as relatable as someone in my maybe immediate or second kind of circle of friends or network that I can look and see that's someone very relatable I can learn from. I'm inspired by that. I can do that, as opposed to, the two extremes, very powerful and completely powerless.
Yeah. And a great way when people feel isolated to feel like being a part of a community still, because I guess that's what many people feel during this time, that they are on their own. But you have both really experienced challenges this past year, and what's common with both you are that you created opportunities when opportunities seem few, really. So and we can welcome Stina as well for her input. But I'm curious, what are your main tips to take control of a situation that seems to be out of your control?
Oh, if I can chip in on that first, my instant kind of answer to that, and this is very, very hard, and I know because it's a challenge for me, it's that you have to accept that you can't control the situation. And I'm a control freak, I'm a master planner. As I said, my plans were just absolutely decimated. So those things are really difficult, but accepting that you can't change like the big picture, the big scenario, the world, you can't change it, you can't influence it. That's very far, that's a very big concept, but you can control your immediate surroundings. So what do you do today? What are you doing tomorrow? How you think, how you react, and your emotions, and I guess how you interpret the world. And that's my main tip. Is really difficult, but learning to release that need for control is the number one thing that will just give you, I think what Josefina said about, I decided to stop looking for a job because obviously I can't find it now. And having made that decision it was a relief, right? So I think that's what you do. You just accept you can't control, and then you look at what can I control? And also I would say, what's important? What do I value? Do I need to know about everything? Do I need to control something somewhere far that doesn't really affect me? No, let's look at the immediate where I do have some control over. The only caveat is, I live in London. We're still in lockdown. I have control over very little things. So that's my very particular situation.
Yes, Stina, do you agree with this? Or what was your...
Yes, I would definitely also say, like, take control of what you can, even though it's what's for dinner or how is my walk going to look like tomorrow. But still make decisions that you can, even if that is not doing something. It still feels good to take decisions. At least that was the case for me. And I also think it's important to kind of keep your expectations dynamic, because I had a lot of expectations. I've been waiting for many years for my graduation and my plans, and then I had to shift those. And when I kind of adjusted those, it was a big relief as well. So staying open-minded and keeping dynamic expectations, I think, is very important. But also, and I guess this of course depends so much on the context and like what situation you're in. But for me, it was also important to kind of commit to what I'm doing. So 2020 and 2021 still counts. It's going to be parts of our life. It's not just something we can look at as it doesn't matter. So whatever, what doesn't matter what I'm doing. I mean, you can still do things even though it's not as expected. It still counts. So I think that's also important to remember, like try to create as good opportunity as you can. Of course, these can be limited, but at least for me, it worked, not thinking, okay, I'm just going to apply for this master, whatever if I pass or fail, or whatever if I get in or not. Like that was a commitment I did, and it felt great to commit. So I think that's also important.
Yeah. Stina, do you have a word?
Yeah, I agree with you there, Josefina, because making this year or those years actually count is really important, because like when you will look back at these few years from now, this is quite a small amount of time compared to your whole careers. So also keep that in mind, that this is not, and also everyone is affected by this in one way or another. And that could also help you to smooth it out a bit, saying that, yeah, I was not having a job for 7 months or whatever, because there was a pandemic. Yeah, obviously. so everyone can relate to it. So that is actually something to cope with. And I also wanted to add there, especially for you who are in your studies at the moment, that are about to graduate soon, I want to encourage you to talk about the situation with your classmates or your friends or your family, because just talking about it, makes it so much more easy to handle. So I used to say that if all of the students who reached out to me wanting advice actually talk to each other, I wouldn't be necessary, because sometimes you just need someone to talk to, and that could, you are all in the same boat. So use each other, use your friends, because everyone knows what's going on.
And I mean, especially you, Josefina, and you, Sveta, you show that no, you can't, like you said, Sveta, you can't change the world, you can't control the world, and you can't always control when you will get a job, but you can still you can make opportunities happen. And that's what I see in this conversation, that it's not like waiting for them to happen. It's like, okay, I'm going to give myself these opportunities. And that's what you've done, and what you, Stina, talked about early in the session, to like those skills, those soft skills as well. That is something you can work with during a year, even though you don't have a job. So there are always things to do that makes you keep moving, that you can
exactly.
take on.
Exactly. And there is actually a whole career theory covering this topic called planned happenstance, so that you sort of creating the opportunities on your own in order to be open-minded, be curious, and every action that you do, regardless of what it is, will lead to some sort of effect. So if you are even more interested in career theories about this, Google planned happenstance. It's really interesting.
Thank you. That's a new thing, that a career theory even exists.
Well, they do. They're fun.
Well, and I also have this question that I was talking about in the beginning, like the million-dollar question: how do you network during a pandemic? Stina told us a lot about how to use LinkedIn, and I'm curious, Stina and Sveta, who has been around networking this year, what are your main advice for the people watching? How should they network?
I think absolutely, get your profile in order, and once you're ready, go with that. It's probably a work in progress, so you don't have it, and you might find inspiration as you connect with people and as you explore what is it that you're looking for, depending on how much experience you have already. But I would say absolutely leverage the alumni network. And maybe not just the university one. I don't know if this exists in Sweden, but for example, in the UK, school networks of alumni also exist. So you could go back, and look for those affinity networks that you have. And the idea is, especially with the university ones, I think there is an expectations. There's an expectation for alumni to be contacted, to be asked for help. I used to work in alumni relations in my previous job at LSE, and there the alumni network is so strong. They are so focused on helping the network and the new generations coming in. They expect you to get in touch. If you don't get in touch, if you're a graduating student and you're not connecting with, especially if you're an international student, you're not connecting with the relevant people, they'll think, what are you doing? Why are you not doing that? Because they've been there, they've done that, and particularly in this environment where they know they can't meet you in person. There are none of those events happening, networking, socials, that kind of stuff. They will expect you, to send a LinkedIn message or to connect, follow, comment. And so just I would say be bold, and you have to be strategic. You have to be nice, but go and ask for something and just be authentic, be you, and say, I'm a graduate of X, and, this is what I'm looking for. You don't really go asking for something, but you are putting yourself out there. I think that's the number one thing, and just start doing it, and you will learn as you do it. And I think I can't think of an alum who wouldn't want to, at least have a coffee chat with you as a minimum.
Yeah, and that is interesting that you say it. And I work with alumni relations here at the Lund University, and I guess I always tell students and alumni that it's like their natural professional network that just waits for them. And I mean, you are here from our alumni network, and I think for the audience, you can find the links to our alumni network in the chat. It's because that's the hard part, I guess, as well, for students, like, okay, I don't have this network yet, but yeah, you do, and you just have to be creative or see where is it. Yeah.
I would actually say that you do have, and one idea that I was thinking about with the students, actually, as you're graduating, your class and your peers are your network. Mm-hmm. So what Stina was saying earlier, like, talk to your classmates, talk to each other, that's your support group, that is your network. Mm-hmm. In a couple of years, you all will be in roles, you will all be doing stuff. And you could actually do that now, whether you start a support group for people graduating 2021, 22, and just start from there and build it and work together. I don't know, you could be creating something that isn't there. So don't be afraid. You don't have to look at, people who have worked in the industry for 20 years. You have to look around you and start small and build from there.
And like you did, Josefina, at Norrsken as well. So, hey, I moved to this new city, and where can I find networks here? And that's what you did, like you take this volunteer position.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of my advices. You look for, especially if you're exploring a new field, just kind of research a bit. Okay, where's a lot of buzz going on? Like, where's a lot of people moving through? Is there a way you can get in contact with that? And usually volunteer position is a great way to get at least a toe inside the door. So that's a good start. And I also want to say, if you're also exploring a new field, or even if you're not, a good way to just get, because I was struggling a lot with getting my feed on LinkedIn to cover the topics of sustainable development, for example. So what I did was to start following persons I knew had like a big role within sustainable development, or so you can actually go into someone's profile and then you could click on follow, and then you will see what that person likes and comments, etc., etc. You don't have to friend the person if you actually don't know the person, but then your feed starts to show relevant topics of your interest, and then all of a sudden a webinar pops up or a career fair within this field. So getting the feed is also kind of tricky. So that's a good advice, I'd say. And also go global. I mean, everyone is connected. That's amazing. So don't let like country barriers I lost the word. Don't let it stop you. Yeah. So, for example, in my student job I had in Copenhagen, it was amazing. I just thought, okay, this is a company who's active in 147 countries. I'm sure one of them has something for me. And then I started pulling, okay, where would my expertise and competence make sense to cover somewhere else? And boom, I got the global project coordinating role. So go global if you can.
So we should be thankful that we have a pandemic and internet together. It's not a pandemic without the internet, then you wouldn't be able.
That would be more tricky and not as fun. Yes.
So we have a lot of questions. Yes, sorry, Sveta.
Just a comment to give some kind of perspective. These are the kind of things having a career and taking a role globally, unless you were absolutely mobile, had a work visa, was not possible even a year ago. So when I was graduating 10 years ago, that was not a possibility. So I think absolutely graduates and recent alumni have to think of all the positives and opportunities that they are having now because of the situation. It's not great, but you have potential to reach companies that you didn't dream, or organizations, whether it's, to intern, do volunteering, whatever it is. That is something that unless you were able to physically travel somewhere a year ago, you wouldn't have the chance to do. So it's a huge opportunity. You have a laptop, you have internet, you have options. So, definitely don't despair.
I agree, because also if you were to do like informal interviews or stuff like that, it's so much more easier to do that at the moment than it was a year ago, because then you would have to visit an office, set up a meeting time, they'll have to arrange some fika or coffee or anything. But now it's just,
put on shoes and stuff.
Exactly, shoes. What are those? No, but exactly. So it's so much more easy to actually approach someone saying, hey, can we have a 10-minute Zoom call or a phone call or whatever? But just this has actually made it much more easier to connect with people, because you don't take that much of time off them either. So definitely it's much more easier now than it has ever been before.
Thank you. And we now want to welcome the audience, because we have a lot of questions for you guys. And I will actually welcome my colleague who has a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So we're welcoming Karen here.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
And we have questions for all of them, I guess. But yes.
Yeah. So I've been watching the questions coming in the Q&A, and we had also this option where our participants can kind of give a thumbs up. So there's several that we're also interested in. Back to the very first question, or first point during this webinar about Googling yourself, was a question about, what if your name is really similar to someone else, and only their name is the one coming up in the search? Do you have some tips maybe on, maybe how to kind of refine it a bit of what maybe employers might be doing as well when trying to find you if you have a very common name?
Great, I can answer that. Good question, thank you so much. So first of all, I would want to say that adding the location is really important as well on LinkedIn. Even if you're remote, you have some sort of place or location where you start from. So add the location to your LinkedIn profile. But if you are remote and willing to work from another city or country, you can add that in the about section, for example, but have some sort of location stated. And also make sure that this is, when you have a name that is similar to others, it's even more important that your profile on LinkedIn, for example, is an all-star profile, as they say on LinkedIn, because as soon as your profile is super up to date and everything is covered there, your chances of getting found by recruiters will increase automatically. So maybe consider your highlights a bit extra as well, and add the location.
So if you have this common name, like, make sure to be the common name.
Exactly. Exactly.
And there was another question, I think originally maybe more towards Stina, but Sveta, maybe you can also give some input on this. If that international experience might be good, but being an expat is sometimes a big drawback for employers. Do you have any tips on how to approach that?
I can start, but please fill in, Sveta and Josefina, as well. But in general, I would want to say that it's super important that you convince the employers that this is an asset. In what way your international background, your experience from different countries and cultures can be useful for the company. So probably they are not aware of it by themselves, so you will need to make them aware of how that can be of use. Say they're looking to expand to a new market or going into a new country, say that. So explain why that could be useful for them, that you have this experience. So you will need to be aware of why it is a benefit, but then also promote it to them, I would say.
And I would also add with that, actually go back to what is your unique professional kind of background and skills that you're bringing. So don't actually focus on being an expat until it is an issue, but focus on the value that you bring with what you are, who you are, your skills, your experience, because there is a war for talent. You might feel that, you can't find the right opportunities, but employers want the right people. And if they find the right people, they will make it happen. So don't focus on what you don't have, focus on what you have. And if you are the number one pick for your employer, then they will make it work. And you can find ways. Obviously, I don't know, the detail of the specific, scenario, whether it's a legal visa, immigration thing, but I think you have to look who you are, what you're bringing, the value, and sell yourself in that way to the employer, and don't put the idea in their head that you're an expat. Don't give them reasons to say no to you. Give them all the reasons to say yes and to want to have you.
Good advice. Yeah. There's another one that I think actually could be maybe relevant for the whole panel to chime in if you have any input. But if you have zero motivation after this year, how can you get it back? Can you give any tips to as to what to do to keep on going during this time? And yeah, activities to be doing or getting involved in, maybe that can kind of spruce up that motivation again.
I think for me, I also felt like I was just exhausted, to be honest, once I graduated, like having a really tough year with a master and jobs and volunteer projects and whatever it was, and just interviews, going by train back and forth to Stockholm. I just felt like once I lost a job, I had done all of that for nothing, and I was just so out of energy. I didn't want to do anything. But then I started with just, okay, what do I consider fun? Like, no matter if it's career wisely good or not, just what do I think is fun, and try to focus on that. Like, that's a very general advice, of course, but kind of, again, with the expectation, keep them dynamic and try to get expectation within things that you find fun, whether it's knitting or taking a walk with your dog or whatever it might be, to just focus on the fun. Yeah. I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'd say it depends, where your lack of motivation is, because I feel with the pandemic, the challenges are multiple. They're personal, they're professional, career-wise. So you might just want to give up on all fronts, or you just want to go all in on career, or focus all in on your kind of personal life. But whatever it is, I would say that lack of motivation or a lot of motivation and excitement, they're both temporary. None of it is steady. Every day I wake up and I want to take over the world. So I would say, maybe see it as, today I don't feel motivated. It might take me a week of being really slow, and maybe just accept it that this week it sucks. I don't feel like doing anything. Don't force yourself to be motivated. You can't do it. Just let it be. Sit on the couch, watch Netflix till you can't, and that can help you kind of snap out of it a little bit and say, okay, I'm done sitting on Netflix on the couch. I can't do it. What can I do next? So for me, I had so much energy. I was doing so many things. So I threw myself in a lot of projects. And given I overcommitted at some point, I felt like, okay, I took on too much. I've overcommitted, right? But find that one little thing, and it's a time to just try something completely unrelated and maybe break your routine. So if you never cook. If you don't read. If you're not meeting friends a lot, start meeting different people. And I would say you need to have a support group of some kind, and that's not always your best friends or your the first people you think of. I think you have to think of the people, maybe wider network, that are positive, upbeat, and people who are also committed to doing things, because you need to surround yourself with that kind of energy, people that push you. So maybe get a buddy that is also on the job search, or just someone who understands you and kind of feels where you are and can kind of push you. A lot of people do this with workouts and gym kind of goals. So you can do it in your job search. You are accountable to someone. And it can be the difference, when someone's like, you can do it, go for this, because they're invested, but they can't make you do it, but they can just give you a little bit of push. And it's a day in, day out. It's not just because you have motivation today doesn't mean you will wake up tomorrow, you're just as energized, and that's okay. Just I think acceptance, and then tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow I can do better. What can I achieve tomorrow that will help me with my career goal?
I agree. And just want to add real quick there that also when you said this about gym and training and stuff, because normally they say, or the ones who do this a lot say that in order to see the results, you need to step back once in a while as well to relax, to take one step back and just let everything go and rest. So that is also really important to do that once in a while. Just leave it. And then you focus on something else, as you said, for example, there Josefina, go knitting or walk a dog or whatever. And then you come back with much more energy. So also the work-life balance is important when it comes to looking for a job balance.
Yeah. And also seeing it a lot for me was when I just took this whole pandemic thing and thought of it as an opportunity to explore things that I was interested in, but just my set out plan wasn't for that direction. So my motivation was really in, okay, how can I explore? It's an awesome time to explore, because it's okay. It doesn't have to fit your CV. It doesn't have to be in line with your thought out career path. You can do whatever. It's a pandemic. That's kind of motivating, I think, at least.
Thank you. And I think that has to be the last words. Tomorrow's a new day, like you said, Sveta. We have to start wrapping this up. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we enjoyed the talk. Thank you, Stina, Josefina, Sveta, so much for spending your time and all your great ideas and motivational tools with us today. And I also want to say, for those of you watching who thinks, hey, I want to show this to someone who also are on the job hunt and needs to know these advice. This has been recorded and you can find it at our YouTube channel, at the University YouTube channel tomorrow. So you're free to share it then. And for all our alumni and students approaching graduation, as you can see in the chat, please join the alumni network if you want to stay connected or inspired or attend events like this, then tune in there. So thank you so much for this afternoon. My name is Alma Bagil, and I'm so glad to have shared this inspiring hour with you guys. So thank you and bye.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you for listening.